The Army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, signed a declaration in Jeddah after a week of talks mediated by Saudi Arabia and the United States. The declaration affirmed their commitment to ensuring the protection of civilians at all times, allowing safe passage for civilians to leave areas of active hostilities, and letting in badly needed humanitarian assistance. The declaration also called for the restoration of basic services, the withdrawal of security forces from hospitals, and respectful burial of the dead. However, the two sides did not agree on a ceasefire and remained far apart in their positions. A U.S. official involved in the talks said a proposal on the table would establish a new 10-day truce, which would lead to negotiations on a longer-term end to fighting. But the official said the two sides were still quite far apart, and that it would be a long process to move from a temporary ceasefire to a permanent cessation of hostilities. The talks in Jeddah were described by U.S. diplomats as difficult and challenging. Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan said in a post on Twitter that the talks and the commitment to protecting civilians were a first step, and that other steps would follow. He said the kingdom would work until security and stability returned to Sudan and its people. Civilian groups are expected to participate later in the talks, according to a U.S. official. The Forces for Freedom and Change, a coalition of political parties supporting democratic rule, called the declaration an important first step towards ending the war, and urged the forces to abide by it. The declaration signed by Sudan's military and rebel leaders is a step towards peace in the country. It aims to address some of the urgent issues that have caused suffering and instability for millions of people. One of the main goals of the declaration is to achieve a short-term ceasefire as soon as possible. This would allow the parties to negotiate a lasting political solution and end the violence that has claimed thousands of lives. A ceasefire would also create a conducive environment for dialogue and trust building among the different factions. Another key objective of the declaration is to ensure the protection of civilians and the delivery of humanitarian aid. The conflict in Sudan has displaced over 2 million people and left more than 7 million in need of assistance. Many of them face food insecurity, malnutrition, disease, and human rights violations. The declaration calls for respecting international humanitarian law and facilitating access for aid workers to reach those in need. The declaration also recognizes the importance of restoring essential services such as water, electricity, health, and education. These services have been disrupted or destroyed by the fighting, affecting the quality of life and well-being of the population. The declaration urges the parties to cooperate in repairing and restoring these services as soon as possible. Finally, the declaration commits the parties to withdraw security forces from hospitals and other civilian facilities. This is to ensure that these places are safe and accessible for everyone, especially those who need medical care. The presence of armed forces in hospitals has been a source of tension and fear for many people, and has also hampered the work of health professionals. The declaration is a sign of hope for Sudan, but it is not enough to end the conflict. It needs to be followed by concrete actions and commitments from both sides to implement its provisions and respect its principles. It also needs the support and engagement of the international community and civil society to monitor its progress and hold the parties accountable. Only then can Sudan achieve lasting peace and stability.